What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Radio Free Urbanism, a podcast about urbanism and stuff. Today we got a packed show. There's four of us here. And first, I want to introduce, you know him, you love him, Ethan Myers.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's great to be here. A wonderful Friday afternoon. It's wonderful out today, and it's a great time for some Radio Free Urbanism, where we discuss urbanism.
And we also have Sully here. He's back, one of our regular hosts. Welcome back, Sully.
Thank you. I just walked through my front door and immediately sat down for this, so I'm super excited.
Completely unprepared.
Yeah, and the weather here is miserable and terrible, and it's making me depressed after just 2 days of being foggy. So
that's the way it goes. But we have a special guest today. This is Aaron. Everybody welcome Aaron from The Goose.
Hello. Welcome to the podcast that you welcomed me to. I'm having a great time already. Thank you for inviting me on this wonderful Good Friday. You've made it good. Even better.
I hope so. We didn't have any fish for you, but hopefully this can be at least something that will take place of that. But can you just introduce yourself to anybody who might not know who you are?
So my name is Aaron Heggie McKay. You can pronounce it Aaron if you're into a Key and Peele thing. People in the chat are like already chiming in with that. Aaron! You done messed up, Aaron. So I run a YouTube channel called The Goose, that is _Goose_media, and I talk about climate and related issues from like a Canadian perspective, but also since it's a global perspective thing, it's stuff's transferable. And yeah, I try to make it funny as best I can, because it's otherwise a pretty depressing topic.
No, you do a great job of that, especially the money gun. I hope to see the money gun come back.
Oh, Hazel, my friend Hazel Thayer has it. I gave it to her as a gift because she uses it more.
Well, hopefully there's some kind of replacement for that, because that's one of the things I feel like you could collect on your desk. We'll talk about desk stuff later, but
I have cool desk stuff if we want to go through the desk stuff. Oh,
okay,
yeah.
At the end of the show, we'll do a little show and tell. Maybe back and forth. I love that. A quick update. The election here in Canada, the federal election, is a go. Today, me and my wife went to our local polling station, and we waited for 45 minutes, and I calculated that it was moving at a pace of one person a second. And I was like, nah, this is going to be at least 2.5 hours. And my wife was like, no, it's not going to be that bad. I was like, okay, I'm going to go back tomorrow because it's just early voting, or one person a minute. It's just early voting right now. And yeah, she waited in line for 2.5 hours. So I'm like, I'll just go another day. It's just crazy slow. I couldn't believe it. But we had our federal debates yesterday. And Aaron, you actually were covering it with Hazel.
Yeah, who I've already mentioned already.
Yeah, and there was a moment where actually somebody in our Discord mentioned that Pierre Poilievre said something about the security clearance was going to make
that
him
whole
gay.
Thing. Yeah, that whole thing.
So yeah, that thing happened. So I'm just going to share this clip from a short that you posted. Was this just yesterday?
This is just today. This is today.
Yeah, it's great.
Security clearance briefings that I would be gay.
What? He actually said
I could be prosecuted.
Hold on.
He said gagged. He said gagged. Gooped and gagged. Boots the house down.
If I got the security clearance briefings, that I would be gay under security law.
Wow. Okay, so that's why. Oh my God. This is fucking homophobia. What's wrong with being a little gay?
Yeah.
Awesome. Like,
I just want him to live his truth. Just live your truth, man. Like, it's okay. It's okay. In the year of our Lord 2025, it's okay. But what like
an insanely perfect gaffe to happen to Pierre Poilievre. Like, it's I don't know if it could have scripted that better.
I don't know. This may be his coming out. I hope so. I hope so. I honestly, I have heard rumors, and I'm not even making that stuff up. I just want him to be. I just want him to be happy.
What was he trying to say? You think?
He was trying to say gagged, gooped and gagged, which is already kind of like drag queen talk. But yeah, but yeah, like he has this whole masculinity presence or whatever. He's gotten jacked for to become prime minister, to be to appeal to the podcast bros like us, right? Us
yeah,
bros.
Absolutely.
That's right.
All those white guys. Yep.
Yeah.
Jamie, can you pull that one up for us?
Oh yeah. Let's show the guns, guy. All right.
not even.
But all I'm saying is that I've lost my point, so I don't even know anymore. But what was your question?
Well, what I'm getting out of it is I actually kind of like a fit leader. You know, you look at Trump and it's like, it looks like he hasn't walked more than 10 feet in 20 years, you know, and very rotund. So I don't know. Maybe the way to get kids to exercise is to say you'll never be the president if you don't exercise.
I think so. The previous prime minister that Canada had was Justin Trudeau, and before he became prime minister, he was challenged by a senator. We have a Senate that doesn't mean anything, but we had a senator who was a conservative senator challenged the then candidate Justin Trudeau to a boxing match, and he was fit. And he he won the boxing match. I don't want to say he beat the shit out of the guy. But like he would like show up. You could go Google it right now. And he's just like showing in his like ugly tattoo. But like, dude was fit. And yet the podcast bros still call him a beta. It has nothing to do with your physical fitness and has everything to do with like personality or whatever. They just don't like you. So like, we're never going to. You don't have to have that. Yeah, it doesn't really
come
matter.
out of facts a lot of the times, right?
No, it doesn't.
It's all about the aura, I think, more than anything.
And a lot of the times, those podcast right bros are the most, actually, all the time, they are the most sensitive people out there.
Oh my goodness!
Are you calling those snowflakes?
I am.
Oh my god!
The soy right.
The soy right.
The soy right is real, folks.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at Jordan Peterson. He cries every not that men should cry. It's just like there's this cognitive dissonance of like, be a man or whatever. Motherfucker cries all the time and is clearly the most miserable motherfucker out there. No matter how much money he makes, he's just like constantly depressed and like has an eating disorder and like drug issues or whatever that he's struggled with. And I want him to be well. Yet he goes out there and is just like, here's my new self-help book. And it's like, cool, dude. Cool.
There's only so much you can do when all you eat is just beef and
meat.
Salt. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not
and benzodiazepine, at least historically. I'm not saying he's doing that now. He's certainly not doing that now, as far as I know.
Yeah. I don't want to get too deep into Jordan Peterson. We probably could talk a whole podcast about him, but I do want to ask you, Aaron, about the goose. Yeah, we could get into this stuff for sure, but the goose.
Oh yeah.
So like on this show, we talk a lot about urbanism. We don't talk a lot about climate change, even though one of us does have it in their handle.
But Ethan Climate and Transit Myers.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
Right, that's me.
But like on your YouTube channel, it's not full of videos, but each one you do publish is a banger. Like every time. Fantastic. So you talk about the carbon tax. You've talked about the windmill in Toronto. You've talked about the gouging from the grocery industry here in Canada, housing, and you've also interviewed some political people from the Green Party, I can see. So tell us why you're doing this, why you started this, and are you backed by the WEF? I have to eat a certain number of bugs in order to qualify for a $20,000 check from the. Anyway, so the goose is it's basically I talk about climate and related issues from like a Canadian perspective. I kind of realize that we can't just talk just climate in an era where everything else is going on, and I feel like in order to solve something like as big as climate, we also have to solve everything else all at the same time. So I try to take a bit of a systemic lens at things and then look at things that are happening that people care about. So like housing is one of those things that like if we can solve housing, we can also solve climate at the same time. These are not mutually exclusive, right? Like solving the housing crisis with like suburban development is not only going to make the housing crisis worse, the typical suburban housing that we have, it's also going to make the climate crisis worse. So again, we put a climate lens on things. And we can be better off. Same with monopolies, the monopoly problem that we have. A lot of this, like I came into my little climate awakening in like 2019, being like, if we just put solar panels on things, that'd be fine. And I'm like, what happens if we just have solar panels on private prisons? It's like, we can't just change things that way and just expect things to solve themselves with just technology. We do have to get a little bit deeper. So the wealth inequality that we're all suffering through is one of the reasons why things are so unaffordable, and one of the reasons why like we have people who use the amount of money that they have to trick us into continuing systems as they are, like the oil and gas industry. Yeah, the status quo, right? And that's what we saw yesterday with the debate what's the solution a lot of them offered was basically make more to solve the climate crisis.
More of the industrial capitalism. Just do more of it. It will be fine.
Just export it and they'll use it over there. It's fine.
If you neoliberal capitalism hard enough, you will solve all the problems. Trust me.
The problem is we're not doing it hard enough. And that does seem to be the answer that we're being offered in many ways. But we can get into that a little bit deeper if you want. But that's kind of what the Goose does. And if to say that, it's very nice of you to say that everyone is a banger, but they do take some time to do, and they're all like 45 minutes long or whatever. Yeah. So that's why I do like short stuff on like Instagram, and then like every so often come on like with something that's a little bit longer or more in depth. The next one is going to be on pipelines in Canada. So
awesome, very topical for sure. We'll see what happens there with the election, because that's
it literally doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who wins. We're building pipelines. It literally doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if Poilievre wins or if Carney wins. Pipelines being built. They made that very clear.
Yeah, we're at this stage here. It just feels like we have two flavors of neoliberalism, and there's nothing else. It's just like, do you want the blue or you want the red one? It has a little bit of sugar in it with it. That's all.
I think we're actually at a point where neoliberalism is dead on one side, and what it's being replaced with is far more monstrous. And the conservatives, like the Carney folks, who is like a classic red Tory neoliberal kind of guy. Though, I mean, if you read his book, there's different stuff in there, but like the previous neoliberal, like Kamala Harris is the good example of that, where it's like Kamala Harris was the conservative candidate, right? You brought out people like, you're like, oh, don't you love Dick Cheney kids? Don't you love this war criminal as well? And like, that was their whole, like, why don't you vote for us versus basically right-wing Maoists who want to just burn everything down and have a cultural revolution that is based around like petromasculinity. That's kind of how I see it.
I have a question for you.
Thank you.
If I could jump in, actually, for all of you guys, it's something I've been thinking about this last week. Because I often do feel very stuck politically between different sides, because I think in some way things have come full circle, especially in California. When we talk about like when we talk about what's stopping housing, and people bring up regulations, and you look at the history of these regulations, right? And it's like, wait a minute, 40 years ago, these regulations were super popular with the left for good reason, because people were bulldozing marshlands to build single-family homes. But right now, those same regulations also stop people from building apartment buildings in infill development, right? And this is not something I'm coming up with. I've been thinking about the whole Ezra Klein abundance thing. I don't think we've talked about it on the podcast. Maybe you did before I was here. But his sort of brand of like anti-regulatory conservatism that's actually left-wing. And it seems very, I don't know, it's very interesting to me. And I think it's sort of also epitomized on the right by, I heard an interview back during the election. There was a senator, I think in Wisconsin, who was running as a Republican. And he was like a developer. And he was saying, yeah, we can't build enough housing. Whenever I try and build a building in Madison, there's all these regulations we need to get rid of. And then he pauses for a second. He goes, but the Democrats want to just shove all of us into little concrete boxes on top of each other. And I was like, what? It was like he ruined his own. I was like almost warming up to the guy. I was like, oh yeah, okay, maybe there's a bridge here. Anyway, I would love to hear your take on, because you talk about the intersection of climate change and housing. What's your take on this whole regulatory environment? What are the good regulations? What are the ones, the bad ones? Or are they all bad or all good or all that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think there does need to be a thoughtful discussion on this, and especially in terms of sharing of powers and where the burden of the regulation lies. And I think at a local level, you obviously, anyone who's listening to this show probably already knows that there's a whole bunch of like, you got your parking minimums, you got your you got all of these different things. You have height restrictions, like setback requirements, all of these things that effectively make proximity illegal. And proximity is one of those things that make a walkable community, a bikeable community. And then at the same time, you have like a weird like disinformation campaign to say like 15-minute cities bad, and which is all being funded by the oil industry because they want car dependence. Car dependence is part of their business model. They need it because they need to keep growing. So there's a whole bunch of noise on that end that is making a rational conversation very, very difficult. But yeah, I think we do need to increase the freedom of people to build. And we can't be having municipalities be addicted to developer fees, because that creates a whole bunch of terrible incentives for how you build infrastructure and all these things. So there's the whole Ponzi scheme argument that you see in strong towns. So yeah, I think there is a very traditional small c conservative argument for like the limited government approach of just like have a nice community, do things very well, conservatism used to be about community, and it's not anymore. Part of the problem here is that we don't have good language on it anymore. Left and right is very muddled, and it's very simplistic. Conservative values, like you look at, I'm trying to think of a good example. You know the movie It's a Wonderful Life, right?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Frank Capra was like a conservative of the time, right? The whole point of it is like the evil finance dude is like taking advantage of this small town, who like for people who just walk around and like in this really nice little neighborhood or in this like community, they it's not car dependent. They can walk anywhere they need to go. They know each other. Like that's the kind of vision that I think conservatism used to be about. So I think we're no longer having those kinds of conversations, and in a way that the new urbanism people are like trying to get back to that, but we're no longer seeing those as like a conservative vision. We're seeing that as like somehow revolutionary because you're going against the standard vision of government enforced car dependency. Which is what it is.
I'll give you something to think about. At the end of that movie, during the big triumphal scene, when the main character, he has his like building and loan thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's giving people houses. Notice what kind of neighborhood that was filmed in a new housing development at the edge of LA.
They were building those.
Yeah. Upstate New York. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I think it's so interesting that the vision still was of success from that side. It was just not funded by the big man. It was funded but it was still separated homes out on the edge of town, single family. It's interesting.
It's a movie that is very much, pointing to a different future of the post-war America, because it was like 46 or 47 when that came out. And that's when they had a whole GI Bill that had to get people into houses quickly. And we have a whole history. I'm not going to do a history lesson because I didn't come prepared for that. But I think we all kind of understand we all know there was like this great acceleration in that kind of housing development. So you're right to point that out. Yeah, you're right to point that out.
Yeah, it's what people wanted too, and I don't begrudge people for wanting what they want, but it's a matter of the consequences, or are we willing to actually pay the cost of the things we want? And that's the big thing. It's the externalities that come with it. So.
Yeah, in our culture too, we have the whole like you're not an adult if you don't have a home. If you don't own your own home, you're not an adult, which to me is a little silly. But I understand that people want it, and you can't fight culture exactly on that way. But I know somebody within my network is just like I really, really want. I just had a kid. I really, really want a house, and now I'm looking to live 2 hours outside of where I work in order to achieve that, because that's the only affordable place I can live. And that to me is not silly on their part for wanting those things, but silly we just can't accommodate that as a society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you lose a lot of value too.
One time that if everyone on Earth had as much of a carbon footprint as people in North America, we would run out of oil and gas in like 3 years or something.
Oh my god!
Yeah, when you like fly,
I don't know that
you emit as much as someone in like the Congo will in their whole lives, right? So like,
right, and I think there was a good point in bringing up the carbon footprint thing, which is like it's an average of like what a society does. So as an example, like for Canada, we have roughly the similar carbon footprint of someone in the United States. So it's technically a little more depending on when you do it. But if you take away our oil and gas industry, it's like cut in a third, basically. And it's just that's because the oil and gas industry is Canada. And each Canadian emits that on average. So like that's again like decoupling the idea of what your individual carbon footprint is and the average carbon footprint is versus like what a carbon footprint is emissions per capita. So it's just something to think about.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Yeah. I've got a question for you. So I recently, not that recent, it's probably like 6 months ago, I read Gregor Craigie's book, Our Crumbling Foundation. It's about housing in Canada, but he expands and he kind of explores the world in the book to find examples of what they've done to help their housing situation. So for example, in Tokyo or in Japan mostly, they have very, very lax laws when it comes to zoning, what you can build, and things get built quickly. And that kind of brings that whole mishmash look when you're walking the streets in Japan. Or he talks about Germany, where they have lots of public housing. I think 5 to 10% of the housing stock in Germany is public housing. So I want to know what you think. Like, what is the one thing we're not talking about that could help the housing crisis.
Oh boy, I wish I was more of an expert on this, to be honest. I did just I did a video on that a while back, but I one thing that we're not talking about, I think it's kind of just getting outside of the development mindset that we have, and I think we just need to start thinking about what are the barriers to putting actual houses up. And perhaps one thing I think that maybe Pierre Poilievre kind of has right, just to give him a little bit of credit, is that we have all these developer fees. We're making people of the future pay for housing now, and that is an unsustainable business model because it is just literally it's a Ponzi scheme. So if more people knew about that, and if there are ways for like the government to like make that go away somehow, it would also increase property values, because then maybe the idea is tax land. I don't know, be a Georgist, be a geoist or whatever. So if you start taxing land, then it becomes one of those things where, this parking lot is too unproductive.
Yeah, that's the biggest one I think of when we talk about taxing land, is just private parking lots. It's insane how little they bring in.
Or just leaving land vacant too.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
You need the incentive to sell it to somebody who's going to do something useful with it. So maybe taxing
a guy, because I like to talk to people from all the sides of this whole issue. So whether it's developers or city staff or whatever, and I met a guy whose uncle owns a ton of property in downtown LA, which is the downtown of the second largest city in America. So you'd think the land would be worth something. He told me that they own a lot on the corner of two very prominent streets, and it's a surface parking lot for about 30 cars. And it's zoned to have up to like an 80-story building on it. I mean, it's the densest zoning you could get in LA. And I said, why don't you guys build something there? And he said, we've done the math, and we make more money per year renting out for $200 a month or whatever to these 30 cars than we would from a 70 or 80-story building because of all the developers.
80-story building?
Yeah. And he's like, there would be the developer fees, a huge amount of the building would have to be parking, all the different things, right? And it's like, and also the cost of materials has gone up, and at least he said also the union wages. And then the other big thing, which is one of my news items to share with you guys for this week, is Measure ULA, which is a great example of the well-intentioned sort of left messing up. Again, not my opinion. There was a report that came out this week from the Housing Center at UCLA, which I read.
Yo, you can dunk on the left all you want. The left has some dunkage to. I'm not here for the infighting, but like thoughtful criticism is encouraged.
Right.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
So they basically, and I don't want to mess up exactly what this tax is, but it's basically if there's any real estate transaction above $5 million, there's a huge extra tax you have to pay to the city. That's why it was called the mansion tax. But of course, it also applies to multifamily apartment buildings, because also those are usually more than $5 million. And so according to this report, it has undeniably slowed the growth of multifamily, of this construction and the purchasing of multifamily lots and projects by something like 20 to 35%. So kind of a disaster. And it's also made people not want to invest in the city of LA. So that's part of why.
Not ideal.
The woke Democrats ruining everything yet again.
It's DSA people who came up with it originally. And they made this weird alliance with NIMBYs who were like, oh, great, people won't be able to build stuff. So it's like the strangest political alliance. It's very weird.
Oh, because my property values end up going up. Surprise.
Yeah.
No, NIMBYism doesn't have borders. I've seen that very clearly here in Vancouver with our municipal election last month or a few weeks ago. It's widespread. Once you get in a house, something changes in your brain and you're just like, no to everything.
Even just the name NIMBY, like the whole not in my backyard, is like, bro, you have a backyard?
Yeah. You have backyards?
Whoa. It already has a position of privilege in it.
Yeah, 100%. I want to go back to talking about climate change, if we can, a little bit, and talking about how we can help our environment through the built environment, but more so there's economic reasons, or at least economic mechanisms we can use to help fight climate change. And you know where I'm going with this, and that's to talk about carbon tax. So your video on carbon tax was fantastic. And even though carbon tax is dead, as we knew it here in Canada, I think it's still worth watching. It's worth talking about. So I mentioned before the show, I showed it to one of my relatives who was spouting off some propaganda lines from one of the political parties about carbon tax. And I was like, you should watch this video. And then he watched it, and then he like looked into his own taxes, found a rebate, and like did the math. He's like, oh, I actually got back more money than I would have paid broadly in carbon tax. So, you know, you could change one person's mind.
I'm actually super surprised because in that video, I mentioned that there is a study that where you do the math for them, if they've been exposed to, like, they're already within that position of like, I don't believe you, they're going to double down and not believe you even harder when you do the math for them. Because it's a whole motivated reasoning thing where it's like, I didn't say it in the video, but I think the technical term is identity protective cognition, where basically you warp the world around you to make yourself feel psychologically safe within your peer group. And there has been a very well done, coordinated campaign to make that happen. And one of the bigger predictors for like you doing that was your exposure to the sort of right wing media and propaganda talking points. So it's very important to get in there ahead of time if you're going to do it. But in Canada, it's already too late. So
it's dead.
The saga of the carbon tax here. I don't know what your question is. Just do you want me to?
I just want to know. Through? Yeah, I want you could kind of explain what the carbon tax is, why it was, and why it isn't.
Okay, so a carbon tax is the idea that you make polluting expensive, essentially. And initially, if you just do that, it makes life very difficult. So because all of a sudden, gas prices and all of these things that we rely on to live our modern lives become more expensive, and people get very angry. So economists were like, what if we take all that money from the carbon tax and then we just sort of split it up into like different chunks and then just give it back to people? And the way that we did it in Canada, that was the way they wanted to do that, because, you know, they tried it in France and then people put on yellow vests and started blocking intersections and stuff. So they're like, let's just do this kind of thing, and we'll make it so that 80% of the people get more than they receive. And that was basically true. So the majority of people are getting more than they pay in the tax, and people should be happy. The more 80% of the people should be happy, basically, because 20% of the people do most of the polluting. And that was fine for about from 2019 to about 2022, and then in 2022 happened. Russia invaded Ukraine, and then there was a huge spike in oil and gas prices because people on Wall Street were like, "Oh fuck, there's a war." It wasn't really anything to do with the production, but they're just fuck, it's war, and the uncertainty there made the price go up. Which we all...
Oh, they love uncertainty there. That just means...
Yeah. We're going to have such a fun time with that. We can talk a little bit about the Trump administration, I guess, in a little bit. But the people who wanted to make an issue out of the carbon tax looked at that and started blaming the carbon tax for the price increase here. And that just like stuck in people's minds. So basically the lesson for if anyone trying to do it in the United States is ExxonMobil is for a carbon tax nominally. And when ExxonMobil wants that, it's because they know they can use it against you. So like, at least until a little bit later on when there are better alternatives, don't be pushing for a carbon tax right now is my advice. But yeah, I have more to say, but I don't want to ramble too much.
No, that's okay. Because one of the points that I thought was really interesting from the video that you brought up was you talk about externalities, and it's a good thing to explain because it's something that gets missed out in the conversation a lot, not just when we talk about climate change, but almost anything we do, right? It's right. The idea that there's two people having a transaction and there's an effect on a third party who's not involved in that transaction. And it's a matter of paying, well, close to hopefully the price of those externalities. So you mentioned that basically what they even offered and put on the table for this carbon tax, we never got close to the full amount that it should have been at to pay for the externalities. It was like something like half as much as what it actually should be. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was basically about half. I think at the time of recording, it was like a $70 cost per ton. And I think it's like 170 was like the actual thing or something around those 150. But yes, the idea is this is if you want to get technical, a Pigouvian tax. And it's basically you tax the bad thing so that the market makes less of it. And we all have happily ever after. Because climate...
It's technically a Pigouvian tax, but it's also a very progressive tax at the same time, if you think about it.
This one is, yes. But like a carbon tax, blanket carbon tax, so the one that Margaret Thatcher wanted to do when climate change first became a thing, this is, again, the neoliberal way of doing things. Let the market decide whether or not we survive, is to put a blanket tax on all carbon-emitting fuel and then just let the market figure it out. And that would have been a global carbon tax without any sort of like rebate or anything. So, if gas prices go up and you can't get to work anymore, too fucking bad. That's kind of the little way of doing it. So, yeah, the externalities are key to understanding. There's a whole branch of economics of people trying to like value how much the destruction of the physical and biological systems that make civilization possible, how much they are in a dollar value, which is a crazy thing to try to do when you think about it, because these things just can't, they're just priceless. There are things that just cannot be replaced. So anyway, the idea is that those get degraded through carbon emissions and climate, and we gotta put that information in the price signal. That's kind of the idea. And to do that, you put a tax. Milton Friedman was for this. This was Milton Friedman's idea.
Which is
why it wasn't his idea, but he liked it. Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying that's why also all these, I guess, whatever you want to call them, but they should all like progressive congestion pricing as well. But I have a question.
It's a Pigouvian tax as well.
Yeah, because you said that the market will correct itself, but in this case, when the carbon tax is basically based on lifestyle, right? And at least in a lot of American cities, 90-something% of the land has already been zoned and built as single-family homes. So, like, even if you really want to live in a walkable neighborhood, it's quite difficult. Also, those walkable neighborhoods are already kind of the most expensive because
people want to live in walkable neighborhoods. Turns out.
So, I'm always concerned with stuff like this. Like, I think it works, obviously, but only if you live in a system in which you're doing the other side of the scale. So you do the carbon tax and at the same time do zoning reform so that the market can actually build denser housing, right? And I don't know if Canada did that, but like, you know what I mean? Because then it's like an illusion of choice. It's like, oh, well, people will try and drive less, but if you literally can't because there's nowhere you're allowed, because no city allows you to. I think another good example is like in California with the RENA numbers, where they go to each city every 8 years and say, this is how much housing you have to zone for in your city. And so then the cities, okay, great. So on paper, they have to zone for another 10,000 units, but then they can still come up with random things like my city is doing, which is a new creek ordinance to protect the local species. You're not allowed to build within 50 feet of any creek. And guess what? Almost across the entire city, there are creeks everywhere. So you've just unzoned like 20% of the parcels, right? So I don't know. I'm looking for like almost like a comprehensive plan, which actually like looks at all of this stuff at the same time. And I don't know if that's been discussed with the carbon tax.
So I should just clarify that the carbon tax that I'm talking about here is a consumer carbon tax, and that's just like on individuals. And personally for me, like I think that's there are limits to how much consumers can really affect things, right? Your consumer choices are you're only able to buy the stuff that you have options to buy, right? And you make the point that like it really doesn't feel great if all of a sudden like your monthly gas bill has gone up by like 20% or whatever. And then on top of that, like they're saying, if you want to not do that, install a heat pump. It's like, oh, okay, I'll just get another $20,000 to install a heat pump system and put insulation in. The government also has supposed to be programs to help with that. But at the same time, they're not covering the whole cost. It still feels like an imposition. And so I can totally understand why people will be upset by that sort of a thing, because you feel like you're being punished for living your life. And I think that's a major liability with sort of a problem, with a sort of a policy. And that was kind of the lesson that we all learned and are continuing to learn. There are carbon taxes. California is one of them that are done at like the state level, or they're done at an industrial level. California used to have a cap and trade market with Ontario, Quebec, and I think that's it actually. But then Ontario left. And so it's now just Quebec and California. But because Ontario left, we got the consumer carbon tax because we had to have a floor in which we had carbon pricing at some level. So yeah, you're absolutely right that on the individual level, it can feel like you're just being punished for living your life, and that's a problem.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know how far we want to go to this. We got a bunch of stuff that we have here in the show notes still, so maybe we should head on in. Sure. So something that's perhaps a pseudo Pigouvian tax is parking, and this is something that's been coming up a lot here in Vancouver over the past year. So just recently, this has happened here in Vancouver, where the city has introduced paid parking at 8 community centers and facilities as part of a new initiative to manage parking and generate revenue. So parking fees will vary depending on the location and time of day, with options for hourly and daily rates. And the city states that the revenue generated will support facility maintenance and programming. And some residents have expressed concern over the added cost, particularly for low-income families who rely on these community services. And this is also going to be happening on local streets where there is free parking at Kitsilano Point by Kits Beach as well. And as you can imagine, the responses have been very tame. No, that's not at all. Not at all.
Reasonable.
People are freaking out. People are freaking out and have lots of arguments about why this is a bad thing and it's going to hurt people. They come up with these anecdotes and strange stories where there's a family of 7 and they bring a barbecue every time and all this stuff. And it's like, I think it gets away from the point a lot of the times, which is it's just a problem. So I try not to get into it on the internet with too many people. I did get a bit sassy on Reddit over the past weekend. And I basically said, here's some fucking books. Go read those. Cause like, I can't just like keep trying to type like that cat with the keyboard constantly trying to teach individual people about parking. It's one of those things that we have, like you talked about, Aaron, that is a problem with proximity. It spreads out our cities. It makes us less efficient. So somebody had mentioned back to me that it's ableist to have paid parking because people who can not walk, they can't cycle, they can't take transit, they need cars, need parking. And this completely ignores the fact that we can have exemptions for situations like this. But I think saying that pay parking is ableist is a lot like the whole expanding mobility is the war on cars and is ableist, that whole argument. And to be honest, I think it feels a lot like when Black Lives Matter became a thing and people were replying to that with saying all lives matter, which misses the point entirely. We're pointing out an inequity and the reply we get is, you're being oppressive and exclusionary. It's like, guys, like went way over your head. It's crazy. So in the case of parking, the system we have in place forces people who do not want to use a car or cannot use a car, whether that be because they have a physical, mental, or financial limitations, to pay the cost of other people's free parking. And it's been bundled into everything that we pay for. Like, for example, when you ride your bike to work and your colleague takes up a company parking space, when you walk to the grocery store and somebody parks underground for free, or when you go and take the bus to the beach, for example, like we're talking about here in Vancouver at Kitsilano, and someone leaves their car on an unmetered street parking space, all else being equal, the person driving their car in those circumstances is getting subsidized by the other person. So that's the thing we're trying to talk about. And to say it's ableist is really just, it drives me up the wall. I'm like, do we want to just like keep using that as an excuse and dig the hole deeper, or change our environment so those people don't need their cars anymore to get to where they fucking need to go? Sorry, that's my little rant.
No, I just want to complain about everything and make things, status quo. That's the best way that we can do things, is just keep everything the same.
This is the best of all possible worlds.
Nick, I think you have a point, though. I think NIMBYism is a bit of a culture. And like any culture, it has its legends. And I think the NIMBY legends are the grandma who's moving 12 pianos, needs a van. And 7 with the bar. They have like their mythical creatures. Maybe that could actually be a fun book. Mythical NIMBY creatures, Who are these people? Where are they? No, but actually to your point, I actually have a solution that would not charge people for parking. It's quite libertarian. I'm proud of this. I thought of it while you were talking. I thought, it's unfair. You're right. If I don't own a car, and I'm paying my taxes, and then people get to park their private property right in the public right-of-way, rather than charge them for it, I think you should be able to put whatever you want in a parking spot. If I want to put my fridge out there and some tables and chairs and hang out, I think that should be allowed too. I think that's the way to solve this problem. Parking spots can be for literally parking anything.
Well, that's what they do with Strong Towns, right? On parking day, take over a parking spot. We did that here in Vancouver one time with Strong Towns Vancouver, and we put up like a little parklet in the space for the day and hung out. It was nice.
It's going to be free, then let it be free, That's where I can store all my extra stuff that's taking up room in my closet. I think that would be fair.
So you're basically saying that a parking spot should be one of those things, if we're going to use it as a social utility for people to put stuff in temporarily, it doesn't have to be a car. It can be literally anything.
Yeah. No need for it to be a car.
Could I sleep in there? Probably not a great idea. I'd probably get run over.
You might get run over, or
you might get run over. To the ape. Whoa. We just.
I'm just sharing my screen.
I thought we lost things.
No. I wanted to ask you what you guys thought the price of the parking was going to be here. So, for example, near Kitts Beach, our most popular beach in Vancouver, how much per hour do you think they want to charge for these spots that were previously free?
It's a popular beachfront.
Is that the nude beach?
Not the nude beach. No,
it's not the nude beach.
No.
Okay, so there's no demand going there, so they're only charging like $2.
I was gonna say $5.
Are you kidding me? $1.50 an hour. $1.50 an hour, guys, and people are freaking out.
That's pretty ableist, if you ask me.
And there's free overnight parking.
Yeah, free overnight, maximum of 3 hours. I don't like parking maximums if it's paid. Maybe you could do like the price goes up, like a progressive price for how long you park. But $1.50, it's very reasonable. But this is about parking management too, right? The population in Vancouver is growing very quickly. It's geometry. It doesn't care about your entitlement to free space. We can't fit more cars. It's just not possible. So you can either drive around in circles looking for a spot, or you can pay a couple bucks and actually get a spot when you need it. And I think that's the thing people.
I think Skitch brought up a really good point in the chat here. She said the parking should cost at least as much as the buses that run to Kitts Beach.
It would be weird if they wouldn't, but you're basically punishing people for taking the bus. You're punishing people for not having a car.
Yeah.
And that was another thing. I kind of just want to pick on the whole the ableist argument. I totally understand we need to redesign a lot of stuff to be universal access, but not everyone who is disabled can afford a car as well. Because especially if you are somebody who is you were getting your money from the government because you were on disability, that's not going to cover living in Vancouver and owning a car. So it'd be great if public transit. I haven't been there in a little while, but anyway, there's a whole access argument there, and you're right. It does feel a little disingenuous to be like, oh yeah, having to pay $1.50 because I have to drive a car is unreasonable. It's like the $1.50 when you own a car is pretty much nothing.
Yeah. And that's what it always comes back to. But it does feel like this thing with parking. I was watching Black Mirror, the newest season, which has been really good. I'm loving it. But little spoiler, I don't want to go too deep, but one of the episodes was kind of leaning into the whole Silicon Valley thing and the freemium stuff, right? Where, for example, Uber is a good example I can think of where the dichotomy is interesting. When it first showed up in the scene, it was so cheap. They weren't making any money. They were just pouring money into this thing. And what happened in a lot of cities, Ethan, how'd that go in Las Vegas? How'd that go?
Yeah, it pretty much destroyed most of the unionized cab jobs out there. So
and now when you take an Uber across Las Vegas, here's $60, and you're like, holy crap, just to get across the city.
Look at you got yourself a deal there from the airport.
Companies in Vegas, though. They
Unreal.
The monorail extension to the airport.
They did.
So
they've stopped any transit extension to the airport.
And so I'm just saying the whole point I'm going here is those models absolutely suck, and everybody hates it. It really sucks. And that's what free parking I feel like is a lot of the time. It's like this thing that we expect to be free and easily available. All of a sudden, we have to pay for it. And I think that's the psychology. People end up freaking out when they actually have to pay the cost for these things. I think it's a bit different with the whole Silicon Valley thing. There's some gouging going on there, right?
I mean, if you all haven't heard the word already, Cory Doctorow coined it in shitification. You basically,
I love that term.
It is one of the most useful terms. You see it everywhere once you hear it. And just to take you through it real quick, it's to offer a service that is really good and really free. But you build up a user base by making something very attractive. And then you start squeezing your users to get more value for your shareholders. And then you start squeezing your shareholders. And then the whole thing just becomes fucking shit. That's every tech platform.
Didn't Climate Town do a thing on this recently?
Yeah, I think so.
I think he did. By the way, I did want to point out that today I saw parking in Beverly Hills, $3.20 for every 15 minutes.
That's pretty serious.
Yeah. The people in Vancouver should be happy they're not in Beverly Hills.
Not yet.
Not yet, yeah.
Well, I'm sure those people in Beverly Hills are really sweating it out there. The working class neighborhood of Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I can come back to it, it's like I said, it's about managing parking, and I think $1.50 an hour is very reasonable. It's not like what's happening in
$1.50 Canadian too.
Yeah, Canadian. That's like what, 50 cents?
That's $1.
Yeah,
it's $1.
But like in Long Island, in New York, there was a beach there. This is where it was ableist, it was classist in a way, where they had beach parking. And instead, what they would do is, here, if you're a local, you can pay $10 for a yearly pass for parking at the beach. But if you don't live in this area, you have to pay $20 an hour or something like that. Like
that's a big East Coast, Northeast, and mainly Northeast beaches out there have a lot of non-public access beaches out there.
Yeah, that's like
have the coast.
Was this a Robert Moses idea? Can we bring that back to him?
Yes, there is a Robert Moses State Beach in Long Island.
Literally, there's a beach for
there is.
That is a man I would not want to see with his shirt off. Let me tell you.
Bro could swim though. The guy could swim like 18 miles. The guy was crazy fit.
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, that's the one good thing I feel like the Coastal Commission does in California. I think there are like 5 private beaches in the entire state because they were grandfathered in. And they took Malibu to task because people were putting up fake signs in front of their houses saying private beach. But my high school was about 5 minutes from one of the only private beaches. And I remember that they put up a chain link fence so that, kids couldn't get into the beach. We would just climb it. So then they covered the fence in petroleum jelly. So that you couldn't
Can you just
so funny?
Can you just go into the ocean? And then
there were basically houses right everywhere, and then there was like a driveway sized gap to get down to the beach, and a canyon too. And so that's where they put the fence. And then that didn't work because I think people threw blankets over it, and so they planted poison oak that grew all over the fence too.
Oh my God!
Maximum security beach. But what's funny is if you go to the next beach down, which is like a mile and a half down. You could park, public parking, walk on the beach. You could just turn right and just walk to the private beach along because they're not allowed to put fences on the. It's actually the mean high tide mark. I happen to know that.
Yeah.
So yeah. But anyway, I just grew up.
You can still access said private beach by the water. By the way.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next story here. Ethan, you want to take this one away?
So recently we had some more bad news out of the Los Estados Unidos. Coming to us from the state of Texas, we had a funding grant for a study for high-speed rail in the state of Texas, fully pulled from all of its funding. A $60 million grant gone in a second. So
think about how much money they saved. That's taxpayer money they saved.
So if we wanna do a little calculation here, just this study alone costs the average American about 40 cents. Every American combined, pulled together, costs us about 40 cents to do that study.
$60 million. And
like
Ethan and I
go fund me.
Yeah, Ethan and I looked up how much TxDOT spends annually on highways. Anybody want to guess? Maybe Aaron or Sully, if you don't know, want to take a guess.
I will guess.
Wait, this is the state or Republic? The Republic of Texas. I would guess probably 27 billion.
Okay, how about you, Sully?
Okay.
I think I saw your post on this. Was it on Blue Sky?
I didn't post about it. No.
Oh,
I didn't post about it.
Well, then I did. Then okay, because I think I saw someone else. Is it like 5.5 billion?
So Jack says in the chat here, 700 million. I think in 2022, they spent just shy of $20 billion.
Oh, I was over.
You were over, but yeah.
Oh, no, it's 27 billion Canadian, though.
Actually, yeah.
This is just on maintenance.
Just on maintenance.
This isn't on anything else, not expansions, which they are doing. Austin mentioned in chat that Houston alone is getting a $13 billion highway widening project. Austin is also looking at another widening project. Dallas is too. And yeah, Texas, they love their highways.
Just one more lane.
God bless TxDOT.
Yeah, I saw that they were going to expand the Katy Freeway to something like 32 lanes or something from like 26 or something. I can't remember the numbers, but it was an extra. It doesn't seem like a lot, but then when you actually look at it, you're like, Jesus Christ.
Can you imagine being all the way in the left lane and having to get over to your exit at any point?
It's okay though, Aaron. They're managed lanes, so that way, this lane you have to pay to be in. This one is free, so it's always clogged with traffic. And these lanes, they're there or something. I don't know.
Wait a minute. But you're saying that if you charge for something, the market's... Oh, sorry. No, never mind.
I would not be surprised if Texas does like 2 tiers of like paying for HOV lanes, where you have your free lanes, you have like 3 HOV lanes, and then you have like 2 HOV plus lanes or something.
I think that there should be a lane for cars that have those horns on the front. There should be like a horn car only lane.
The ones with the spiked tires too should have their own lane.
Right,
You know?
exactly.
You need a truck nuts lane if you're going to do all that too.
Rail, that's like commie shit. We can't have that in the great state of Texas.
This is actually kind of something that I'm curious to know. Like, why haven't people been like, yo, all of this big government spending on these is it just self-serving arguments that they're fine with big government when it benefits their lifestyle, and they're not principled at all, I suppose?
Yes.
It's just like the parking arguments I didn't share this comment that was on the Vancouver subreddit. It says, it's funny how even the staunchest conservative, free market, personal responsibility, user pay, low tax, small government type turns into an instant Marxist-Leninist when it comes to parking. They want it all state subsidized.
Our parking.
Yeah, it's the same.
This is our
thing.
parking.
It's just simple
Ben
selfishness.
Shapiro's and the Tucker Carlsons and all these guys when it comes to the billion spent on the freeway. It's so interesting to me.
Well, there's only one way you can get around, and you have freedom of mobility in this country. So if you take away from my 32-lane wide highway, you're literally a new Maoist, okay? Like, you're literally trying to restrict me from traveling. This might as well just be North Korea at that point.
They have a lot. You say what you want about North Korea. Its traffic is great.
It's really good.
You can get around very quickly in North Korea.
As well too, they do an incredible job of maintaining these trams that are like 60 years old, like like Soviet-made trams in their cities. I believe that our current regime here in the U.S. is doing a great job mimicking the Juche ideals of North Korea with cutting spending.
This has become a great leader podcast.
Maybe we can get funding.
All right, let's move on to the next one here, Aaron. We got a story from you from Toronto.
Oh yeah. I just wanted to bring up that there's a Not Just Bikes video that goes well into depth here, but we have the dumbest. So basically, Toronto put in a whole bunch of nice bike lanes. I use them all the time. Like they're more or less protected. We've been fighting for these for ages, trying to get them on Bloor Street, which is one of the more heavily trafficked streets. That's where like the subway also runs. So lots of stuff to see on Bloor Street. Those go in, and the premier, which is like the governor, it just happens to be on his drive to work. And so immediately just goes, we have to ban all new bike lanes and take these out. He just has this whole conniption, and we're kind of in the middle of all of this. And it's just because Toronto is doing this, that means anywhere else in the province now has to like get approval for every single bike lane that is being proposed. And it's a huge like intervention in how local governments can run. And technically, the province can do that. They have all of the power. But there is an injunction being asked for by activists, and they're arguing that this is actually an unconstitutional bid. Like they can't just go ahead and do this. Don't have to get into the whole law of that, but that is going to be decided pretty soon. But I just want to put this out here: if I die on my bicycle, bury me on Doug Ford's lawn. Just bury me there, because that is where I belong. And yeah. That's we're all sort of hoping that we get to keep these on, because they will cost us millions of dollars to remove. Those cost about twice as much to remove than it costs to put them in, which is just so fucking stupid. And lots to say on that, but very local, but it's a big fight here.
Yeah.
No, this is a topic we bring up on the show pretty often, updates. So this is a good to see the update here with the judge actually denying this, and at least for now, seeing what's going to happen. The bike lanes are still there, because we thought maybe even at the end of March they would start.
The great thing about Toronto is construction takes forever here. It's the great thing about it. It's just everything takes forever here. So,
but it is insane. The insane part, this is what happened in Vancouver with Stanley Park and the bike lane, the separated bike lane that went around the park, and the inside was removed when we had a new mayor come in, and they spent money from the active transportation budget to remove them, which is just like, oh my God, like how fucking brain dead. So yeah, to see that this potentially happening in Toronto, we don't like this at all. And I think it sets a precedent for other places to potentially do this, but hopefully knowledge and studies will prevail and show the data that this stuff is good for everybody. Like please, let's just look at it, guys. Come on.
There is this great line that I want to just share. I was talking about this before we started recording. So the government has a lawyer that is arguing their case on it. And just looking at this CBC article here, that has Mr. Hunter, the government lawyer, says 2 lanes is more than 1.
He got it.
Incredible analysis. Incredible legal analysis.
Yep.
But I need a citation.
Yeah. Source. Source.
So for anybody who doesn't understand what that means necessarily, it's the fact that they're arguing that 2 lanes makes more car traffic move faster. And that's it. I imagine that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah, they've made this very clear that they're doing this for cars. Hunter, the government lawyer, argues the law was connected to its purpose to increase space availability for cars.
So my argument is, obviously, 3 lanes is more than 2. So what I think you should end up doing at that point, take after Texas, just bulldoze the city. I think it would be far more.
Actually,
what a good idea.
Everyone live in like RVs that are constantly circulating on a giant circular freeway, never coming to rest. And like you have to time when your house and your work like pass each other so that you can hop between them.
Wait a minute. I got a great idea. We could go to our wonderful overlords in Silicon Valley and automate all of these RVs. So that way you don't even have to drive them. You can just kind of like sit in them and they're moving automatically.
I think they're all pods and they're moving on with like a big gas engine in the middle of it. And then it just fires a bunch of like rockets at them and then we just all explode and die. Because that's where I just want that at this point, because that's as much freedom as I can possibly understand.
That's better than what they're proposing. Yeah. Somebody call Elon Musk. We'll set this shit up. Let's go.
Yeah. Get SpaceX on this.
Yeah.
Just get a whole bunch of ketamine and put it in one room. He'll sniff it out.
Yeah.
All right. We got a couple of listener mails and then Sully's got a little show and tell to do. So let's get to that. So this first one here, Sully, do you want to read this listener mail here in the doc? Are you in the doc? Okay, Ethan, go ahead.
Yes, I will read this first listener mail. So this first listener mail comes to us from Jen Hall, and she says, "You're setting up an Easter egg hunt and inviting urbanism naysayers to show them the error of their ways. What neighborhood in the world would you choose?"
Ooh, that's like, you know where I'm going. Like, two come to mind immediately. Obviously,
San Antonio.
Yeah.
I would say either De Pijp, which is in like close to downtown Amsterdam, and they've really done great with that neighborhood. Beautiful little parks, lots of market streets, lots of traffic calming, really lovely. But I think I just have to come back to Houten. Houten's outside of Utrecht, and it's a purpose-built, quote, bicycle city where you can easily drive anywhere you want, but you can even more easily walk and cycle to anywhere you need to go. And it also has 2 train stops. And the use of space is fantastic. And I think the reason why I would bring somebody there is because there's a lot of single family homes that are within reach to everything. And you can see the mixture, there's the middle housing. When you get really to the core of the city, well, there's 2 cores, the north and the south. There's lots of apartments there. Then as you get a bit further out, there's a lot more townhouses. And then at the outskirts is single family homes. But literally you could bike from the farthest end to the farthest end, the farthest you could go in this little town. It's 50,000 people live there. It's 15 minutes on a bicycle. It's literally a 15-minute city. It's fantastic.
Can I make a, so you have to get onto a plane to get there, right? Is that depending on where you're at? Can I make a suggestion that's local to everyone?
Okay.
Go to the mall. The yes. Mall is a city that you drive to it and you walk around. And it was based off of the piazzas of Italy. And it's literally like every like little resort ski town is based off of that sort of a thing where you just have to walk around everywhere. The mall is urbanism inside.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely.
No. And a lot of malls are being redeveloped.
I'm going to say go to Houston and place the eggs as far across the city as possible and make them drive everywhere. Make this Easter egg hunt take days of driving across that city.
The evil method. Got it.
Just in time for Easter.
Yeah. That's like the callback to It's a Wonderful Life. Like show them how shitty it can be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need an angel to show us how terrible things can get. Except the opposite? I don't know. I've lost the track on this one.
How about you, Ethan?
I mean, there's a lot of great little neighborhoods that you could do like an Easter egg hunt of this style. I think if we're going to go with a great North American example, I'll do one that's near me. There's a little neighborhood in Portland called Ladd's Addition. It's like an old school 19th century master plan community. So it's quite walkable, and there's been a lot of great traffic calming for it in the recent, years done by the city itself. So it's mixed use, suburban, traffic calmed, a lot of cycling and pedestrians around there. It's fairly low density when it comes to the rest of the city. So it is really kind of the example of suburbia. It can still be walkable. It's just we need to put in the effort.
I like that. That's good shit. All right, we got one more here. This is from Jack. Sorry, what'd you say, Sully?
Quick revision to my answer. I said they should drive around Houston. No. I realized it was a mistake. Make them bike and walk around to find the eggs. That's what you should do.
So make them die.
Yeah, it's.
First of all, can you even afford eggs there anymore? This is.
Yeah, how much are eggs?
Did you see the White House is doing their Easter egg hunt this year with real eggs, like 30,000 of them?
Oh my god!
All right,
what a waste of taxpayer money.
And isn't it sponsored this year?
Yeah, how much does that cost?
It is sponsored. Yes, you can buy sponsorships for it.
Oh my god! All right.
I hope that Raycon buys a sponsorship. I hope it's like all the YouTube sponsors.
Raid Shadow Legends.
Yeah. Donald Trump, sponsored by Raid Shadow. I hope he has to do an ad read during the Easter egg.
All right, we gotta move on, guys. We gotta move. This is from Jack from our Patreon. By the way, if you want to join our Patreon, you can get in there on the Discord.
Speaking of ad reads,
yeah. Oh, how much is it, Ethan, a month? How much is a Patreon?
It's just about the same price as parking at Kitts Beach in Vancouver.
$1 a month. That's it. So here, this is from Jack in our Patreon. What are the nuances of political politics versus the United States that outsiders, me, don't commonly understand? Well, who's best to answer this one? It's probably not myself.
It's probably...
So wait, are we talking Canadian politics?
What are the nuances of Canadian politics that Americans might not understand?
Okay, so we have a parliamentary system, so we don't have a president. We have basically, it's like how you have the Speaker of the House, and that becomes the Prime Minister. That's like the first thing you need to know. We have a Senate, but it kind of is just appointed and more or less as a rubber stamp, but there's a whole like just committees and shit that they do. But the simple answer is they are not elected, and they're kind of not really representative of the people, and everyone just focuses on the House of Commons. We took basically what England was doing, and we just sort of ported that over. So if you want to know how that works there, it's very, very similar systems. We have a first past the post system, which basically means that like you are voting for your local representative and your local representative only. And that's the only person you ever vote for. And we're having an election in a few days, and like the voting does not take long at all. You sort of just go in, do your little X, and you're done. So it's very, very simple. In fact, I would argue too simple, but I have a whole video on that if you want to check that out.
Are there ballot initiatives in Canada? I thought there were.
There are referenda every so often. So sometimes they'll put that in. So there was a referendum in Ontario like 15, almost 20 years ago to switch our voting system to mixed member proportional. So we can not have just the whole vote for one candidate thing. And then because referendums are like basically where initiatives go to die, a lot of the time that didn't go. The biggest one that you might think of is the Quebec separating in the 90s. It almost happened. It was so close. But yeah, for the most part, not really doing much in terms of ballot initiatives. What else do you want to know about Canada? We have 10 provinces and 3 territories. They're fucking big. They're huge. They're just talking absolutely monstrosity. Sometimes we have districts that are called ridings. Sometimes the ridings are like just a neighborhood. And sometimes because of population, they're fucking massive. They'll be like thousands of square kilometers, miles when you get into the north.
I thought of one. One here that I think is distinctly different. And I'm not super versed in this, but I did read this a little while ago that gerrymandering is a big problem in the United States. That's not a problem here because I believe that there's a separate entity, an organization that draws the boundary lines. Is that right?
Elections Canada is a nonpartisan organization that is basically trying to make everything as fair as they possibly can. Sometimes things get moved around in ways, but it's nonpartisan. And so like we don't have the same gaming of the system of like trying to create success to the successful loops that will make it so that a governing party will always be in power. So that is a thing that a functional country does.
Yeah. But by the way, if you guys are interested in more, go check out Aaron's video. It's at the Goose Media. It's why we need electoral reform now. And that was one of your recent videos from last month. It was very good.
Thank you.
Because it's something I've been like, here's a little insider thing. I voted for Liberals once. It was in 2015 when Justin Trudeau said he wanted to reform electoral reform. And that's why I voted for him. And guess what? That didn't happen.
Yeah, because it turns out that when you get elected on an electoral system that you won, you don't really have a lot of incentive to change that electoral system.
Yeah. All right, Sully, we're at the end of the show here, and I think it's time. It's time for show and tell.
Cool thing on my desk.
Is this a thing you do every time?
Oh, we can't do that sound.
So Sully's our new regular host, and this is a new bit that we have that Sully suggested, and we're just like, let's go. And if Aaron, if you've got anything you want to show and tell, please.
Yeah,
I have so much shit on my desk. If you looked at it, you'd be like, damn, that's a dirty ass desk. I have a plant that goes through cycles, so it looks like dying, but it's clover. But I'm actually going to show you probably one of the coolest things on my desk that I keep with me. This is tar sands from Alberta that I keep on my desk. It looks like coffee grounds. But basically, it is sand with tar in it. It smells deeply of tar. As soon as you open this up, it's like Jesus. So it's like, yeah, it's almost like put it back. Wow. And like if you touch it or whatever, you can kind of see it gets on your hands, and it's bitumen. It is that is where 20% of America's oil comes from right now, and it is a heavy oil. It is high sulfur, and it takes a lot of energy to get out of sand. Basically, imagine if Coca-Cola and their entire business model was to get Coca-Cola from the beach that got spilled and then put it in a bottle. Just imagine how energy intensive that would be. You have to do that with sand and oil. And that's extraordinarily. They have to heat it up. They have to like put a whole bunch of water. If you look at, you can find in like just Google Earth the tailings ponds, the just basically man-made lakes of toxic sludge out in Alberta. They're just fascinating to see that they have no idea what to do with this water. It just sort of sits there until I don't know. So yeah, that is what is going to be tariffed. Maybe we'll see how that works out.
It is maybe the most dystopian looking like landscape scenes you might see anywhere on Earth.
Yeah,
tar sand. Yeah, no,
it is crazy. It's like it's a gaping wound on the landscape. But to be honest, like having researched it a little bit, it's like it's kind of fucking impressive what the workers are able to do there, just in terms of an engineering thing and just the amount of work that has to be done. Like they pull like crazy long hours. So like I'm not going to shit on workers.
I used to work there. I used to work in the oil sands when I was
Tell us about
college.
it. Tell us about it.
The thing. Well, I was a paramedic, so I was the person on site. If there's any incident, I was there for an emergency. And it's just crazy to see from start to finish when you go to a new site. They completely level the ground. So first they remove any foliage. They cut down all the trees.
They call it overburden.
And they put it in piles and they set it all on fire.
Yeah.
And then they flatten the ground so that it's workable. And then there's different steps to it. I don't know all the things, but basically they come in, they start drilling. They come in with these buses of guys, which are the frack teams to do the fracking. And they were usually the real roughneck people. These were mostly guys from way out east, like guys from Newfoundland and stuff. And they were hilarious, but man, crazy people. But yeah. And then once they get it going, they just start pumping the crap out and they keep shipping the stuff out. And you just can't believe how much resources is used just to get to that step. Just there. Like I'm just there in a big, like Ford F-350 running 24/7. And sometimes there's two of us, and that's just the medics.
Just in case something happens.
Yeah, just the medics. And then there's giant generators with huge lights running 24/7, burning diesel. So it constantly just smells like diesel exhaust, the whole site. And then when it's really cold in Alberta, it's like -40. Like that those fumes linger, and I can't smell diesel exhaust anymore. I'm just like, fuck no. Like it's just poisoned me. It's terrible.
For those at home who are like, what's -40 in Celsius? It's -40.
It's -40, yeah.
It's the same.
They meet there crazy. For some reason.
You put gasoline outside, it starts to slush up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's crazy. The tailing ponds is something that I'd never actually looked at though. Like I'm curious to see.
I haven't
look like.
I haven't had the privilege. I can only see it in media. But again,
when you showed that little stone, I wonder like how many ancient plants had to condense to make that little amount. Because I remember a few years ago I heard something like every inch you drive is like 3 ancient trees worth of gasoline.
I actually don't know. I don't know the math on that. And again, it's not even a stone; it's sand. If I can break this up, but I don't want to do that over my computer.
No, so I was gonna say I'm familiar with this material because the little fun fact I can add for you guys is that all the beaches in the Santa Barbara area have sand tar that leaches up onto the beach, and tourists come here and they don't know. But if you walk on the beach in Santa Barbara, the bottoms of your feet turn black and sticky from all the tar, and there are oil platforms out on the ocean. Getting the high quality stuff, which is out at past the beach level. But back in the 1800s, they used to dynamite the cliffs and collect all that sand and actually turn it into asphalt. There's an old asphalt mine that no one knows about that I learned about that. So I can actually show you. A few weeks ago, I went walking on the beach, and I still have all the. I don't know if you can see it. There's tar all over my shoes from that. But yeah, so all the hotels around here have tar wipes in the hotel rooms to wipe it off. Yeah, because if you've heard of like the La Brea tar pits, it's a Southern California thing. Those are obviously in LA, and then you've probably never heard of the Carpinteria tar pits, which are in Santa Barbara.
Okay.
And the Native Americans actually used the tar to seal their canoes, which allowed them to join multiple pieces of wood together and still have the canoes be waterproof, which is something that natives in other parts of the continent were unable to do. So there's all cool history with that. But anyway, Nick, I did not know that you spent your time in the mines. I respect that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm one of those few environmentalists who's like, look, oil is super useful. So it's actually kind of a fucking weird thing to burn it at the rate we do, because if we want to have a civilization that lasts a long time, this stuff is too valuable to just burn for fuel all of the time and at an increasing rate. It's kind of crazy the amount of resource waste that we allow, just because that's the way it's priced. You take the amount of money it costs to get out of the ground, and not to replace it, not to any of the externalities, and basically add a little bit of profit margin, and that's your price. And that's why you have to have a carbon tax in some ways, but we don't. I don't want to have to get back into that.
Yeah, no, because I think it's like if you like trains have to have all the grease parts. They need oil too.
Oh,
right?
It's incredibly useful. It's incredibly useful. But yeah.
So back to Sully. You've got something on your desk you want to show.
I'll show the thing on my desk. That's a really cool thing. But I also have
getting long in the tooth
on my
here.
desk, which is how I thought of the segment. So this week, I'm going to show you guys this Build the Lanes patch, which is Velcro. So I assume made out of petroleum material for the plastic here. But yeah, I when I was in the Netherlands this summer, when I filmed my video on Houghton, which Nick also made a video, so watch both of them. But I contacted Stefan, the guy behind Build the Lanes, and said, could I meet with you? And he said, yeah, for sure. So I met him in Harlem, where I think he still is, but he's about to go help in Ukraine. But he's one of the city engineers for the city of Harlem. And he took me on a little walk, showed me some of the infrastructure. It was really great. He showed me this main street that had been closed to cars and then was reopened, because what he was trying to tell me was that even in the Netherlands, even the Dutch still have arguments about where cars should be and how fast they should be going and all that. I mean, in this case, when it was open to cars, it was still curbless with bollards and cars going like 15 miles per hour or less. But, it wasn't in the old town, and so it didn't work out the way they wanted it to, and that was okay. But and then he gave me this patch, which I keep on my desk.
That's rad. Yeah.
Nice.
Stefan is he's awesome. I had the chance to talk to him online a while ago because I was going to go meet up with him. I'm going to the Netherlands again next month. But yeah, he's going to Ukraine. And I think he was on Not Just Bikes podcast, the Urbanist Agenda, recently. I haven't listened to it yet, but I think that's what they talk about. It was like, I think the title's like Send Your Trucks to Ukraine or something. So the guy's passionate. He's passionate. Like he's a city planner. He's from the States, working in Harlem, and he's gonna go help in Ukraine. It's wild. Good for him. Yeah. Anything else we need to say before we close out the show here, guys? Anything at all? Nothing at all. All right, Ethan, start the thing.
I will start us up here. Folks, thank you so much for tuning into this wonderful episode of Radio Free Urbanism. If you want to support the channel and support this podcast here and all these wonderful, lovely faces, you can come and check out our Patreon, where you can join for how much, Nick?
$1, just $1.
$1, Bob.
$1 a month. That's right, $1, the dollar. But if you want to join that, you can tune in with some of our live guests. We saw quite a few friendly faces in here. Willie, Jack, Jen was here. Austin was here as well, too. Skitch was here as well. And if you want to become one of these lovely people, you can join for just $1. Thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget the plug.
Aaron,
we need the plug.
Thank you so much for joining us here today as well, too. If you want to shout out any social medias you got going on, any projects you got going on, anything, now's your time to do it. Feel free.
Sure. Yeah, I guess just follow me on all of the social medias. It's at @the_goose_media.
Perfect. Sully, where can the good people find you?
Sullyville. That's my handle. I realized autocorrect changes it to Sillyville, but
That's
I'm
great.
not changing it.
I would love to go to Sillyville.
Yeah, Sillyville sounds like a good time.
Believe me, my whole life has been autocorrect. Everywhere I'm texting.
Oh, that's hilarious. My name is Nick Laporte. You can find me at Nick the Door. And Ethan, where can the good people find you?
The good people can find me over at Climate in Transit on every platform. I just put out a new video on a topic we talked about last week, that being fiscal cliffs. But folks, thank you so much for tuning into Radio Free Urbanism this week. We'll see you next week. And as always, train good, car bad.
2 wheels good.
2 feet good.